All right, let's do this. Hello, everybody. My name is Rodgon. I'm an artist, a teacher, a designer, a mentor, cartoonist, illustrator, designer, graphic artist, marketer, advertiser, and everything in between. And today we will be learning something cool together. So let's go over what we went over last time before we continue on to our time today. Yesterday, we learned about posing, and then, well, we started with posing. But then we shifted into like a full-on anatomy lesson about hard surfaces and soft surfaces and like how to draw like little squishy parts and like hard parts of your body and how they affect each other and how that works alongside with the other things that you draw and how that is essentially how you figure out anatomy in general in posing. So that is something that was very in-depth, and we talked about that quite a bit. And I also just ended up walking you guys through the process of drawing faces from straight up zero, from drawing a circle to drawing something with a circle inside to give yourself a guideline to adding features slowly as you progress. And that is how you get better. I also taught you guys the value of learning how to draw through your shapes so you guys can see the front and the back. So you can easily do things like eyes, you guys can do things like noses, you guys can do things like mouths, everything like that, incredibly easier. So that is something that we went over yesterday. That video should be up today on YouTube if it downloaded correctly through TikTok. And let's get to another lesson today. Haloken Gube Deutschland. I'm guessing that is German. Or Dutchland, that's Netherlands? I am not a geography person, so I have no idea. So anyways, if you guys want to do me a favor, like and share the stream so that you guys can actually pay your admission ticket to today's lesson. What should we learn today? Oh, German. All right. So what should we do today, guys? While we decide on what we draw, I'm going to show you guys the little nifty tricks that we learned yesterday. Drawing a circle through your circle, mapping out two circles going around to each point, give you things like eyes. Really easy. And they can also give you things like mouths and stuff like that by drawing through your shape and then just drawing your elements like your lips. So things like that is going to be incredibly important. Face shapes. Have we done faces lately? Wow, it's been like a week since we did faces, so I guess we could do face shapes. And I have been doing caricatures lately, so that could be a good topic, but I wanted to see something different. Hey, Rod, I've been enjoying these streams on YouTube. Hey! Well, glad that you guys are actually seeing them on YouTube. If you guys are familiar with my YouTube, it is just the name of my stream, Rodgon. If you guys just type Rodgon, you guys will find me, but it's Rodgon the artist. So if you guys go there, there's like 400 videos that you guys can use to learn and improve on your art. So there's a ton of videos there. So feel free to go check them out if you guys are feeling like you guys want to learn something. So legs poses. Ooh. The nose and the forehead. So like you want to know the spacing between the nose and the forehead, like this area right here. So this area right here would be what I would consider the feature zone. That consists of all the little features like your nose bridge, your cheekbones, your eyebrows, and then you have your forehead and your hairline and this upper third part, right? So if you divide your face into parts, you can do it like that. You're not very late, we just started. How do you make your pen support? It's just a little like, that one's a little grip, but I just wrap tape around it. I just wrap a bunch of tape around it and it gives me the nice support that I need. How to make more value in your art. That's interesting. Okay, so how about we do this? Since it seems like you guys are having, you guys want torsos and you guys want heads. So how about we do like, how do we draw different proportions of heads with bodies and make it look right? So how about we talk head to torso proportions? Head and torso proportions. I think that would be very interesting because I think that's what throws off a lot of people. So we're going to be talking today about how big you should make your rib cage as comparison to your actual neck, in comparison to your rib cage, in comparison to your arms, and how to actually gauge that. Like, how do we go about understanding that stuff? Right? So I'm going to go over a couple different elements here that are going to involve a little bit of perspective, and it's going to involve a little bit of anatomy. So we are going to be talking about those two different topics, perspective and anatomy. And we're going to simplify the anatomy and mostly think about where the placement of your elements are, not necessarily how to draw your elements of anatomy. It's going to be how to actually place them in the right place. Because if you know how to place something in the correct place, if you know where it goes, you can draw something silly like a little animal leg, or you can draw something more like a human, and it's always going to look proper. It doesn't matter what you actually draw coming out of there, it's going to look like an arm. So it's going to be more important to know where things go than to know how to draw them. And that's going to sound super silly, super weird, but that's just literally the case. Because you can draw styling in any way you want coming out of these sections, and you will have a proper little arm, regardless of what you try to do with it. So we're going to talk about the positioning of things as opposed to necessarily just drawing like, oh, we got to draw an eye, so we got to draw like an almond shape, and we have to draw like little... No, we're not going to do into that, okay? We're going to go into, okay, cool, the eye falls in the first third of our face, or second third of our face within our eyeballs, and then eye sockets and blah, 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 blah. And we're going to talk a little bit more about what actually constitutes that body part and how we can actually figure out how to draw those sections without having to draw the entirety of the anatomy. So that is what we're going to be focusing on today. Okay, so if you guys want to do me a favor, again, I don't normally ask too much of you guys, but if you guys want to like and share my stream, if we can get up to 100 shares and we can get to, 5,000 likes, we'll start this. So if we get to 5K and we will get to 100 shares. Once we get to those numbers, we will start. Until then, I am just going to tease you guys with like little knowledge. Ha 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 ha. So I'm going to teach you guys how to position your arms too, because I think that is going to be like one of the biggest factors. Like, we are so used to drawing our feet and our arms in certain ways that we forget that they are hypermobile parts of the body. So if we keep on thinking that we have only like restricted like ways of drawing them, well, obviously you're going to only draw them boxy. You're only going to draw them like... So the whole point is to actually be able to... Here. So once we get to 100 shares, we will start. Because you guys always crush the likes. You guys always crush this. Let's go up to 9. So there's a bunch of little things that you guys can take into consideration that are going to help you consistently map out your faces. The more that you understand about anatomy, the more detail you're going to be able to go into. So at first, it's going to be really hard for you to see all the muscles and all the muscle fibers that go along with actually having your muscle structures be a certain way, right? You're going to have trouble figuring all this stuff out. So we're going to simplify it up until 2 different points, like a couple different points, and that's going to be all you really need to know, okay? Everything else will be able to be stylized if you want a person chubby, if you want a person fit, if you want a person buff, if you want a person small, whatever. That all comes from stylization that comes on top of your mannequin. So let's start with, we need 10 more shares and we make it 10 more shares, and that's it. All right, we made it. So let's start talking about this section right here. Why is this hard for us to understand? Well, it's because a lot of us start to draw from style. So whenever we are drawing from style, we tend to replicate a lot of things that aren't really necessarily proportioned. So when we start, a lot of the times we draw things like anime or chibi characters or just cartoon characters in general that tend to have really large heads and then they have really tiny bodies. And to all that extent, the bodies aren't necessarily all that proportioned either. We normally have little stubby legs, little stubby arms, and that's normally the extent as to which we normally attack our first drawings. We don't normally think too much about how they connect, we just know that there's some connection in there. So there's like a little tiny nub, but we don't really know where it connects to the actual body. We just kind of draw it there because that's what we can see. That's what we can visualize. So is this something that we start off with, and it's something that we normally don't really break out of? Well, then we always start thinking of this as two sections, right? Then we start like, okay, well, if I draw the head first, I can always figure out how to draw the body after. But then you draw the head and then you're like, oh no, like I can't see my arms, or oh, I want a different pose, but I don't know. I only know how to draw my character straight down. So I don't know how to draw different poses and my poses look really robotic. Ah. Right? I am a robot. So if you guys find yourself in this situation, I'm going to show you guys the way to break out of that, right? Because we have to stop seeing everything as just segmented parts. If you start always thinking of everything as separate elements and you don't know how to connect them, then you're always going to have this feeling of like floatiness to your art. So you're going to have like, sometimes you're going to have like the head a little bit too far away from the body, and it's going to have like the neck that's going to be really long, or the body's going to be really close and you're not going to know how to foreshorten that. So you're going to like block like your other arms, and you're going to like not be able to see your drawing. So unless you think of the whole component as one, you're going to start having a lot of issues with like body parts not showing in the right place and stuff. So how we're going to fix that is we're going to start with the biggest mass for our body first. And since we're going to be talking mostly about the head and the torso, we're going to essentially only focus on the upper part of the body. So in this case, we are going to start our bodies by creating any shape, I'm not kidding, we will draw any shape at all, any shape. We'll do it with like a bunch of different ones so you guys see how it works. Okay, the general shape that you want is going to determine what type of character your character is, right? If your character is going to be tall, draw a tall shape, and then draw little legs like this. Draw a circle, and then draw a little sushi. Draw a circle, and then draw a sushi with however long legs you want. What does this do? Well, this gives you a curvature, so you have your hip bones right away. You don't have to worry about finding out your hip bones. So now you know your hip bones and you don't have to worry about your legs. It's not a leg video, but there you go. Then just draw like your feet going in a certain direction. That's going to determine the perspective in which you are sitting. So if you draw with your perspective like this, you might be looking at a person that's looking that way with like shadows coming this way, whatever. If you draw them with their feet going down, the perspective is going to be over here and everything is going to go based on that. If it's from here, it's going to be the same thing. So this is how you map out your characters immediately. You draw your shape, you draw your hip bones by drawing a ball, draw your legs coming out of it like a little sushi, draw your feet in whichever direction you want to have your perspective, and that is going to be how you ground your characters in space. Ta-da! So that's one way that you guys can ground your characters, but that's not the lesson today, right? The lesson today is heads. So let's draw a head for each one of these shapes. So the average head is going to consist of 3 elements that are going to let you know how big the head should be. 1, your collarbone. Your collarbone, if you go up on your rib cage, let's have this guy. If you go up your rib cage, Just strictly up your rib cage. No muscles, just up your rib cage. Okay? Think of your actual bone structure. If you just go up your rib cage, your clavicle or your collarbone is going to be about at the top fourth of your actual rib cage. So most of these are going to have their collarbone up here. Okay? It's going to be at the upper part of the rib cage. This is our midline, this is our midline, this is our midline. So once we find that, we got to understand that our collarbone is a little bit of a V shape. It's not necessarily straight. So from here, we're just going to bring this line down a tiny bit, and we're going to draw a V. And that's going to give us our collarbone for our rib cage. It's going to give us this little baseball diamond shape at the top too. Okay? So once you have this little baseball diamond shape at the top of your shape, of your rib cage, well, now this is going to give you some interesting things. Now, your collarbone extends past your rib cage, okay? This will extend past your rib cage to how far you want your arms to be. What does that mean? Let me explain. This line, if you draw it up to here, that is where your arm bone is going to be. And then your shoulder connects everything together along with your pectoral muscles. Okay? So wherever you end up with this, that's where your neck muscles are going to go to. That's where your arm is, and then your shoulder wraps around your arm and connects back to your collarbone. Then you have your pectoral muscle that connects to your armpit, and then you have your bicep that wraps around your bone. And then you have your rib cage right here, and then you have your back muscles. And that is how you get width. That is how you get girth. That is how you decide muscles. Your abs are going to be this little divot you already drew down to your little underwear you already drew, and then that's going to have your hips and your belly buttons and stuff. So let's draw that again. So now we have the collar, rib cage into little baseball diamond. I'm going to extend these a little bit, and I'm going to draw my arm like a stick figure, straight up a stick figure, but coming from the right place. Okay, so it's coming from the edge of my collarbone. From there, my shoulder will wrap around and connect back to this little part in the middle. Boom. You can connect it back to the rib cage, and then that'll be perfectly fine. Okay? Just connect it back to this point right here, like where they connect. So your shoulder will connect back here. Then your pectoral will go from your arm down. You can say it at the edge of that too if you want. And then just go down to the midline of your actual chest. That is, you're going to be a very simplified version of your pectoral muscle. Okay? That is like the muscle structure is there, like that. Then from there, underneath these comes your bicep. So your bicep comes up from the top, from the connection point, and then it just becomes this little cylinder that comes down from underneath those. And then your forearm is just a cylinder going up that overlaps the bicep. So it's a cylinder, goes down, it tapers up a little bit, and then it just overlaps the bicep. From here, you don't have to draw really big back muscles, but you got to give some back muscles if you're going to want to have the character have a little bit of depth. And they wrap around, they go around your shape, okay? Around your shape. And then you go down to your abs. Then from here, what happens here? Well, the rib cage is the first thing we drew, right? So that's going to be the width of the neck, really. Like, because you have your spine right here in the back of your skeleton, or your, and then connects to your skull and stuff like that back. So it's literally just muscles that wrap around your spinal cord. That is what's going up to your head. So when you start mapping things out where they're supposed to, it starts becoming a little bit easier to understand why things are supposed to be there. When you start thinking of the upper part of the rib cage as 3 parts, right, as opposed to just one, you can be like, okay, collarbone at the top fourth of my design. Then that's going to be a little bit of a V because it's not necessarily flat. And then from here, I'm going to extend this however far I want my arms to be. This is going to go, I don't know, let's make one arm go up, one arm go down. I'm going to draw stick figures, straight up stick figures, so I can get my actual shape right. And then I got to learn how my muscles connect so that I can actually draw them properly on my actual little body. Okay, so I have my rib cage. Now I'm going to go from the edge right here. I'm going to go and wrap my shoulder around. However big I want my shoulder to be, it's going to go from here around to the back of this shape, and then the front's going to connect right there. Okay. Right there. I want my shoulder to go around and around my shape. Okay. So it's going around my rib cage, connecting to the back. Okay. Then from there, I have my pectorals that are going to come in from underneath my armpit and connect to the middle of my rib cage. Then from there, underneath these two, that's where my bicep comes in. Let's see, wait, shoulder. Oh, I drew the shoulder a little too small. Your bicep wraps around your arm and underneath your shoulder. Your forearm is another cylinder that wraps around and it overlaps a little bit of your other arm. And then your hand is just 4 little knuckles or 4 little cylinders in a little box. And you can move those around any way you want. And if you guys are looking for cool ways to learn how to draw your hands better, I have an entire video called 100 hand challenge that you guys can watch, or the lollipop approach for hands, and then that's something that can help you guys out too. So then from here, you know how we get this little baseball diamond, right? At the top. Well, that little baseball diamond alongside with the edges of it that you draw for your arms can make the shape of an eye. And if you just extend that little section in the middle where your eye is, you end up with the perfect shape for this part of the body. And how does that help me? Well, it's actually really cool because now you just got to draw an eye at the top of your shapes. And you have a viable neck. You have your side muscles connecting to your collarbone. And you have all those muscles there already. And that's just from drawing an eye at the top of your rib cage. Let's try it again. Head. Let's draw a simple shape for a head. We'll draw an eye. And then we will see how that works. Oh, that works really nice. The reason that this works, though, is a very specific reason. The reason that this works is because the actual neck area has 3 sections, and we normally don't see it like that. Whenever we're drawing heads, we normally have a tendency to do this. We have a tendency to just draw a little tube that goes down and connects to our shoulders or whatever. Okay? So this is normally what we think about whenever we're drawing. We just think of a little tube. But when we think about it like this, we're completely eliminating a bunch of the things that happen here. So in your actual neck area, you have 3 sections. You have the tube section that goes down, and that normally connects to the back on the bottom of your ears. From the bottom of your ears down, that's normally where the connection for your neck happens. And then these connection points right here also connect to the middle of your collarbone, and they give you those front muscles that you are so desperately learning how to draw. Okay? And then if you draw your eye going around, it gives you the other 2 sections that you need. You have your neck muscles or your back muscles that wrap around the back, and it gives you the perfect placement for your collarbone that allows you to place your arms and start drawing your body structures the way you need to. So it doesn't matter if it's a male or a female character. Whichever one you decide that you want to draw is irrelevant. You can just change the proportions to make it look like that. So that is how your neck actually connects to your actual body. So if you just think about it like an eyeball at the top of your actual rib cage, it's going to become a lot easier because it's also going to give you the width of your rib cage. So if you just draw like this, draw this, and you'll be able to draw necks really easy. Are you broke? Need pens, dude? No, I like pens. I like this. Like, just because I'm not using expensive materials doesn't mean shit. Actually, people that actually think that having expensive materials is going to make their artwork better, that is kind of silly to me. So, hey, you keep on working with your expensive pens. I'll keep on emptying these cheap ones and doing twice as much work. So there's this little cart or whatever, like food cart that comes up, and then they play this really cheesy Mexican song, and I love it. And it always happens while I'm streaming too, so it's gonna become my theme song. Well, it's not a comeback, man. I don't like being snarky to people, but I mean, if people ask dumb questions, you're going to get a silly response. You're going to get made fun of it a little. Are pens hard to draw with? They're harder to draw with than pencil, but it's not necessarily really hard for people to draw with pens. I like it more because I used to break my pens a lot. Pencils, sorry. So I used to break my pencils all the time because I would be trying to put a lot of pressure on them. See, if you learn how to draw the proper things in the proper place, it becomes easy to be able to pose your characters and get the expressions you want from them. But until you actually know the placement of your elements, it might be really hard and you're going to struggle. Because it's not easy to learn how to map them out like that. But once you actually learn it once and you actually unlearn all the bad lessons, or you move past the initial kiddie lessons, right? If you move past the kiddie lesson of learning to draw your bodies like this, right? Like those little mannequins that they give you. Once you get past this, you'll realize that learning this is just to learn how to visualize shapes. This is not for posing. This is not going to help you for any of that stuff. But this is going to help you understand how to see your basic shapes, right? So that's going to be something good for you if you have one of these little mannequin dolls. Now, after this, once you understand that the body is a cylinder, and then the torso is a ball, and then this is another cylinder going down, you got to start learning how to organically mesh them together. How would that look if you combined them all together and you had little compression lines for each one of those sections, right? This one goes around the top. It's supposed to replicate a rib cage, so it normally goes around. Boop, boop, boop. Then you have your abs in a little ball. That would be the little ball right here. And then you have this little area right here that has your hip bones coming out at an angle. Luckily, we drew this at an angle already by drawing a circle, and we just have to slice off 2 circles to come up with our anatomy. Right? So now we have all this, but in a little blobby. And then we draw our eye at the top of our shape, and we have our collarbone and our arms. Ta-da! You draw your eye in the middle to come up with how big you want your neck to be. And then your head should not normally be any wider than your actual rib cage. Your head in itself is about as wide as your neck in reality. When you're actually drawing an actual human head, like an actual human like proportioned head, you have your neck be roughly the size of your actual head, because it just goes up until your ears and it comes from here. So maybe a little bit thinner, but it will actually look a little thinner depending on the jaw that you draw, right? Because the jaw is in front of it and it's going to be covered a little bit. So if you draw it thinner, you're going to see this. If you draw it about realistic like proportions, it would be about like that. If you want to stylize it, it would just curve in and then you would draw a thinner neck. But learning how to connect it from that actual same vantage point will always make it so that you have a basic rule of how to draw necks. And then your eye that you draw underneath is going to be the base for your eye. And then from there, just draw the rest of the eye out so you can draw the sides, the muscles on the sides that lead you to where your arms connect. And then your shoulder just wraps around that. It doesn't have like a massive amount of girth underneath, next to it. It's just gonna wrap around your bone and connect. And then if you want super big shoulders, just make them bigger coming down, or a little bit more coming in. So you can adjust that according to what you need for your character. And then every body part becomes that. You can change this part to not just be like that, but you can make it bigger, right? Now that you understand it, now that you know where it connects and what it's supposed to go, as long as you draw something coming in from the connection point at the top and the connecting point at the bottom, you can draw ridiculous things now. Like you can make like big muscle bumps or eliminate that completely and go the opposite way. So now you have that range because you have that shape that allows you to do that. So understanding is the key. Understanding, just seeing it once and making it make sense is all it takes for you to be able to visualize these things better. And if you can make it so you can map it really easy by doing something like that, well, now you're going to have the ability to change that up any way you want. and it's going to be a little bit easier to be able to come up with difficult positions, or more interesting positions at least, than it was before. Because now you can see it better. I do have a YouTube. My YouTube is Rodgon. If you just put Rodgon the artist on YouTube, ta-da! You will get my YouTube channel with over 400 videos because they're so cool. Woo! Yay! Because I've been doing this for like 7 years and I love it because now finally I'm getting the audience that I think that I can actually do some help with. So I am super stoked to say that we have almost surpassed the 70,000 mark on YouTube. So that is amazing. We have broken the 210,000 follower mark on TikTok, which is fantastic. And on Instagram, we have broken the 150 mark, I think. So yeah, we have a ton of followers now. That's awesome. I love it. So, okay, so now that we understand that all we have to do at the top of a rib cage is to draw an eyeball to come up with all that section, let's see what happens when we change the size of the heads. So now we are going to have a bunch of little rib cages with a little eyeball at the top. Rib cage, eyeball. Rib cage, different position eyeball. Rib cage, different eyeball. Eyeball on the bottom. There you go. So now that we have a bunch of little eyes, or like just rib cages with midlines and an eyeball, what can we do with this? Okay. Well, what we can do with this is start figuring out how big the head is going to be. I said that the head should be roughly the size of the actual neck, but that's more for like a realistic approach, and that doesn't really necessarily look too good whenever it's drawn. It's going to give you like a very superhero-y proportions, okay? So when you draw the actual head about the same size as your actual neck, it's going to give you a very Marvel-y, like superhero-ish, or more like realistic proportions, honestly. And it's just not necessarily the most appealing all the time. When you start going with it being a little bit bigger than the neck, you're going to start seeing a little bit more of a cartoony feel to them, right? You're going to start seeing your neck and your body look a little bit smaller as comparison to your actual head. And that's normally what happens when you change the proportions for something. So the bigger the actual proportions are to being equal, the more you're going to get more of a kid feel to it because your proportions are just naturally smaller. If you start getting taller and your proportions become much more like massive, and it's not just necessarily the height, it's the volume of the width as well, right? So if this character had its head like this, it would be more akin of this. So it's the very same concept. I'm not adding a lot of extra height value in this one. Just by adding a little bit of girth, you can see that it changed drastically the look of the character. So now let's go with another character. Let's go with somebody that has a really tiny head. So we're going to take that very basic shape and we're going to make it even smaller and see what happens. Well, this character is starting to look like he is gigantic. Like this character would just be massive. And I drew the neck. There you go. We'll draw the neck over there. I drew the body completely the opposite way, by the way. That is not the way the body was supposed to go. But now this character has a massive neck. He's like Frankenstein or something. And then we can go the opposite way and create something with a gigantic head. And a little tiny body. And just like that, that same sort of manipulation of the shapes allows you to create pretty much any style character you can possibly think of. So taking into consideration this whole concept of just connecting your ears to these parts, Once you figure out where your ears go, you can just start connecting your lines together, and you have even the most difficult angles will become a little bit easier. So this is essentially my lesson for today, guys. I hope you guys actually picked up on some stuff. I hope that the head drawings that you guys have now will be a little bit easier by just knowing that you can draw an eye and connect the bottom of your ears to the front of your eye into a little teardrop, I guess. Okay. This is essentially the simplest neck tutorial you guys will ever have. I hope you guys actually put it to good use. I know that when I discovered this, it just made posing for like my necks, and like I never drew the neck flat again, right? I never went ahead and drew like a flat pose ever again for like anything professional, because now I could just be as easy as like drawing my head. I don't have to draw flat anymore. I can just draw an eye going in any direction, and now I have a body pose that's more interesting. I did not show that. Do it again. So you have your heads. Don't draw just your eye right here. Draw it like somewhere else so that you have a more interesting flow to your design. And as you get better at it, you're going to be able to apply these concepts to other things as well. Like the face. The face can be simplified as an eye too, like an edge. If you guys have this basic shape, you guys can just draw a big eye to tell you where your eyes are going to go. Eyebrows, nose. So if you get good at that one shape, you can get good at a bunch of different things. What does that look like? It looks like a cyclops to me, but that's just the mouth. So it's the same concept for mouths and for lips. Okay, so is this an eye or a mouth? Which one is it? Oh no, which one is it? Is it an eye or a mouth? Oh, it's gonna be a mouth. But that's a whole nother lesson for a whole other day. I think that I have made my point that if you actually understand what you actually are drawing, it's irrelevant. The proportions are up to you. So once you understand how things connect, changing the proportions of them is just going to be very, very easy for you. And you'll be able to actually draw in many different styles while maintaining this same level of understanding, which will make it less confusing, and you guys will be able to be more creative as opposed to just always second guessing yourselves, thinking, oh, did I draw this in the right place? Because guessing eliminates creativity. And the quicker that we get past that creativity block, well, it just becomes easy to be able to see things better and improve and have it click. Okay, so thank you guys so much for being my sketching buddies. I'm gonna send you guys off with a nice little message at the end of my streams. I like to do that so that you guys have a wonderful start to your day, because I know that not everybody has somebody there to wish you a nice day and a happy morning and everything, and I love having that in my life sometimes. So I do what I do to others so that people feel loved the way that I like to love people. So on this wonderful Tuesday evening, or afternoon or morning, depending on where you are, I want you guys to show a little bit of kindness to someone around you, and I want you guys to love a little. That means be nice to someone, say a compliment to your crush, I don't know, tell your brother that he's a good brother, sister, whatever. Your work bestie, just be nice to someone today so that you have a little bit of good karma coming your way. Then I want you all to get off your desks. We've been drawing for about an hour or so right now. So I want you guys to get off your desks today, or I want you guys to get off your phone for a second, take a deep breath, and go outside and enjoy a little bit of the moonlight or the sunlight, depending on what you guys have. Admire what's around you. Look at one cool thing that you wish you could draw right in front of you. Doodle it if you have your sketchbook, and then continue on with your day, because you need to live a little bit in order to be able to actually be inspired by things. If you feel like you're in a rut and you feel like you don't really know where to go right now and you don't really have a path, you have to live your life a little bit in order to be able to advance and see the next step in your journey, right? If you don't have a journey, well, you're not going to be able to go into it, and you're going to always feel like you have something missing in your life. So try to venture out of your comfort zone once in a while, do something new, try a new restaurant, go with new people, hang out with new buddies, do something that's going to make you live your life outside of the norm that you normally do, so that you can actually have things to inspire you to carry you through your days. Then the next thing I want you guys to do is find something to laugh about. I want you guys to watch your favorite shows, look at some stand-up comedy, call your favorite buddy that knows the best puns or dad jokes or memes, and I want you guys to actually laugh a little bit. Laughing a little today, bringing some joy to your life is going to be something important in every single day of your life. You should always aim to be a little bit joyful and a little bit happy, and just try to share that with the world as well. And since we are artists and we can't really get away from it, there is only one thing that we need to do every day in order to get better, and that is to draw a lot. If you guys have drawn along with me, you guys have met your quota, and you guys don't really need to do so, but whoever told us that we had a quota on drawing probably does not understand how much we love drawing. So hope you guys have a wonderful day. Thank you for being my sketching buddies. If you guys need more resources, there are some YouTube videos that you guys can check out, about 400 of them. If you guys like what I do and you guys want to help support, there are books you guys can purchase in the form of Art Block, my book series, and I'm about to release a pinup book coming very, very soon too. So there's one right now, but that was just like the Kickstarter for the book. So the digital ebook is going to be re-released with about 60, like doubling the book essentially. And it's going to have amazing illustrations for everybody to actually follow. And that is going to be my next book I release. So look forward to it, guys. I am very, very excited about it. And other than that, thank you guys so much again. I can't appreciate you guys enough. Without you guys, I would not be anything. Have a wonderful day, and I will share some more knowledge with you guys later. Toodaloo.